Even though the Terminator robots are one of the biggest deals in the franchise, we always wait for the next update. We will see the robot in the next film. The other characters' arcs also give us significant insight into the stories. Can you imagine the franchise without Sarah Connor? No. Her character development over the years ensured the franchise's success. But then, there's another character who has been appearing in the franchise for quite a while now, and he has some significant role to play, too. Kyle Reese was the very first protector that Sarah Connor got, and he was the love of her life, but it was tragic to see him get killed in a 1984 film. However, it seems that he managed to survive the events of 1984 and played a significant role in the resistance with his colleague. Let's uncover the details about the survival of one of our favorite characters from the Terminator franchise. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Kyle Reese? What happened to him in the Terminator movie? In 1984, James Cameron revolutionized the sci-fi genre with his groundbreaking film, The Terminator. Introducing us to the iconic character of Arnold Schwarzenegger, this movie ensured that Schwarzenegger remains in our memory as the T-800, the killer robot who becomes the, spoiler alert, savior. But alongside this brilliant performance by the governor of California, there was another character, a character of immense bravery and determination. While the Series 800 Model 101 Infiltrator unit was sent back in time to assassinate Sarah Connor, Kyle Reese was sent on a protection mission. In the face of the T-800's relentless rampage, Kyle Reese, with his unwavering approach, sets out to find and protect Sarah, a testament to his bravery and determination. When both of these individuals manage to track her down in a bar, Reese waits for the Terminator to make his move so that he can protect Sarah. Right when the Terminator tries to go for her, Reese manages to unload the police gun he managed to acquire and puts down the killer robot for a few minutes as it reboots. Now, we get into the explosion bit, which might not make sense to Sarah, but Kyle tries to tell her about Skynet and the robots taking over the Earth. Then he brings up John Connor, her yet-to-be boy, yet-to-be-born, that will be picking up a fight with these robots, and eventually leading the end of the robot domination in the world. Now, what we might have already expected ends up happening, and the authorities manage to hold the duo as Kyle Reese is taken for a lunatic based on the theory he gave. When the Terminator attacks the authorities, Reese manages to escape with Sarah, and the two sneak out in a car. Meanwhile, Sarah asks Reese about the future, and as he talks about it, she dreams about what happens to Reese. Meanwhile, they end up reaching a motel where Reese trains her on how to make homemade explosives. Sarah, feeling the weight of her role in humanity's survival, blames herself, but Reese, with his deep affection for Sarah, tries to comfort her. This is when he reveals that he has fallen in love with a photo of Sarah given to him for good luck, and this revelation deeply touches Sarah. They share a profound emotional connection, they kiss and make love, a testament to the depth of their relationship. Later, the Terminator finds them out and attacks them, managing to hit Reese with a gunshot, but the two manage to sneak away, and the Terminator uses a truck to chase them down. Hoping to run down Sarah in the process, Reese, with his strategic thinking and resourcefulness, uses one of the bombs that he has made to blast the car, and the duo runs towards a hydraulics facility, which turns out to be Cyberdyne systems. Now, Reese gets killed in the process as he tries to jam one of his bombs into the Terminator's chest, and it explodes. But Sarah manages to survive by killing the Terminator and manages to run off, but she has conceived a child with Reese, and thus Reese ends up being John Connor's father, making an Ouroboros sort of a storyline. We get a hint in the photo that Reese had when a boy takes a Polaroid of Sarah and makes her pay $3 for it. Later, in various other films, there are references to the character, and the very next time we meet Kyle Reese in the 2009 film Terminator Salvation. This film is set in the future, and we get to witness the wasteland and come across the very first time John Connor met Kyle Reese Connor, based on the information sent through by his mother. He saved Reese for a great greater purpose he has in the future. But fans of the franchise didn't enjoy the various plot holes that this film led us with. And finally, it only gave us a glimpse at the first time both of the essential characters from the franchise ended up meeting each other. And then there was Terminator Genesis, which was probably an enormous stab at the franchise because it hardly followed any previous plot points. The movie shows us the events of Kyle Reese being sent to the past, but here, he's much more aware of things and knows what the Terminator looks like. Then there was the fact that John Connor turned out to be a Terminator himself, as Skynet managed to make him their latest toy. So yeah, since Cameron left the franchise's directorial position, it has gone downhill, and almost every movie strayed entirely away from Cameron's original intentions. However, the 1984 story isn't the end of Kyle Reese as we know it, because even though future movies give an insight into him, we get a continuation of his arc from this movie and the Terminator 1984 comic book series. Continuing his story in the comic book series makes us intrigued about his future, sparking our curiosity and interest. What happened to him after the movie? Dark Horse Comics released the Terminator 1984 by writer Zack Whedon and artist Andy McDonald, and it picks up the story from where the 1984 film ended. While the authorities thought Reese was crazy, others realized he knew more than he should have and connected the dots. So when the events at the hydraulics facility transpired, these people arrived on time and decided to take Reese with them. But someone else was present there too, another time-traveling soldier sent to help Kyle Reese with this mission. Ben, just like Kyle Reese, arrived a few hours before the final attack that had killed Kyle at the hydraulics facility. Ben managed to observe that Kyle was taken on a different van and followed it till he found that he was taken to the place that would develop Skynet after all. But he couldn't sneak in and fight all those people alone, so he decided he would need Sarah's help. Ben managed to reach to Sarah and told her that Kyle Reese was alive, and the duo decided to infiltrate the base and retrieve him. But when Ben found out that she was pregnant, he thought it wouldn't make sense to put her in danger, considering her child would be their future savior. Sarah was rigid as she wanted to save the love of her life and the father of her child. Meanwhile, another Terminator arrives back in time in some other part of the town so that we can expect another confrontation between our heroes and the killer robot. Ben and Sarah managed to sneak into the facility and rescue Kyle, but on their way out, they saw that the facility was trying to put back the Terminator that Sarah managed to kill. Ben put a lot of charges on it, and the entire facility exploded as they managed to get out of there. While they were getting away, Ben confronted Kyle about him being John Connor's father. But before Kyle could react, they saw the Terminator standing in front of them with a truck. As they managed to turn around, the Terminator clung to the back and tried to get in. But right then, the vehicle hit the curb, and the Terminator was launched into a slurry of wet cement. Finally, the team of three managed to get away and go to a restaurant where Ben and Kyle had the chance to chat about things. There, Ben told Kyle that another one of the reasons he came back in time was because he wanted to be sure that Paige was okay, someone close to him who would die in the future. Kyle understands, but still can't comprehend that he is the father of the person who saved the humans during Skynet's takeover. The reason behind Ben's arrival to help out Kyle is mentioned in the Terminator 2029 comic book, where an old Kyle Reese, who had managed to survive the events of 1984, shows up to Ben and asks him to go back in time. Ben doesn't believe him initially, but then he gives a clue that later convinces Ben that this old man is indeed Kyle Reese. But he still isn't convinced and stays with Paige, while John and Kyle decide to go to the base where they would send Kyle back in time. Right then, a D-800 arrives and brutally kills Paige, and then we get to see a fully convinced Ben head to the labs of Skynet. He has lost the love of his life, and he intends to make sure that the past is changed so the future might prevent the death of Paige, while at the same time helping Kyle Reese with his mission. One of the craziest moments in this comic book series is the fact that Kyle Reese is the one who gets older Kyle Reese out of the base, and the very words he utters to save him are, "Come with me if you want to live." Another moment in the comic book referenced as one of the creepiest details we have seen in the film. During one of the interactions between Ben and Kyle, Kyle shows him Sarah Connor's photo, and Ben clearly states that it is pretty creepy that John gave him that photo. After all, the photo is the very reason John Connor was conceived. Yes, These writers are probably the most fun when it comes to referencing some of the most incredible moments from the franchise. But now, get back to the comic books covering the 1984 storyline, and here, Sarah returns to their table. She asks about resistance, and both of them seem entirely unaware of how it started because she was supposed to have started it. So, Sarah decides right there at the diner that they will begin the resistance. Like all great ideas, the idea of saving the future from being taken over by Skynet was started at a restaurant. After a few weeks, while Reese was giving the training to Sarah, who was almost nearing the time to deliver her child, the Terminator managed to break out of the concrete. He reached where the team was hiding out and preparing, trying to get in and take Sarah. Kyle asks Ben to take Sarah and get away before the Terminator can get them. But right then, Sarah's water breaks, and she somehow manages to get in the car. The Terminator shoots through anyone who stops him, and also shoots down Kyle in the process. Then, he starts walking towards Ben and Sarah. Sarah asks Ben to stop the car and deliver her baby, and Ben complies. Behind them, the Terminator is hit by a truck driven by an injured Kyle Reese, and then he launches a bazooka, the robot. But this still doesn't stop him, and he continues towards Sarah. Finally, Kyle takes an axe and a hammer, tries to break the robot's head off, and manages to do it. On the other side, Ben manages to deliver the baby, but they discover that the gunshot wounds severely injured Kyle. They take him inside the house and lay him down as he tries to utter his few last words. Sarah insists that he has to stay because John needs him, but he tells her that John only needs his mother to motivate him to do the things that he will end up doing. Then he asks for a chance to hold John Connor. Yes, he finally gets a chance to have the person who will save the fate of humanity in the future and his leader. Following his death, Ben and Sarah continued to work on the resistance, fighting and destroying the facilities where these innovations were being made. Ben also keeps a close eye on the lives of Paige's parents as he continues his life in the past. Meanwhile, Cyberdyne is now working on plans to reconstruct the Terminator based on technology that sounds decades away. Yes, now we have an idea of the events of the Terminator film and its sequel and how the resistance had started. Also, Kyle Reese's arc ties up the entire story quite neatly compared to the random narratives we witnessed in the sequels and other movies from the Terminator franchise. It is surprising how small a role the Terminator plays in this comic book story, yet it keeps us on edge. Plus, the references to the franchise are excellent, even though they are a continuation of the film arc. But sometimes, it feels like the writers of this comic book listed all the callbacks and the references, and they successfully gave each other a high five when they successfully brought in these callbacks and references in all the comic book storyline. Adapting this story into a short film arc might be better than the various stories the movies have brought in, where very random events surround the arc of our favorite characters from this franchise. Even though Sarah Connor had stated in Terminator Genesis that Kyle Reese dies every time they get together, we are satisfied that we got to see the 1984 Kyle Reese had the chance to meet his son, who is humanity's only hope before he died. Marvelous verdict. The Terminator has a lot of potential, and often, this potential is wasted with a movie coming out every 2 years and trying to make another action thriller out of it. The idea of time travel gets used so much that we need to understand how the events of the past are going to impact the events of the future. After all, time travel is quite a complex plot device, but it needs to be used to avoid significant plot holes regarding the future and the fate of various characters. The comic manages to do that intricately without disrupting the larger story. Even though the comic books aren't considered canon to the franchise, they perfectly fit in and give us a primary arc of the events before Judgment Day. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.